Okay, I'm gonna start our recording and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so Eros can share his, and we welcome Michelle.
Good morning, everybody. So I teach two classes. I teach freshman biology, and then I teach a junior senior anatomy class. And next year I'm bringing on a biotech class, super excited. So I did two separate projects. So the first one with my freshmen, what I did is we studied the history of Salinas agriculture. We had a author who wrote a book called Salinas. She came and presented actually to the entire school, uh, all about the history of Salinas agriculture, some of the racial tensions and how things came about. My students then researched a pesticide. They were in a partner group and they researched the pesticides, kind of the pros and the cons and alternatives to that. We then collected food waste and made paints from that. And then they painted major concepts from the Salinas Agricultural Unit as big posters to help review for the unit. And that was a lot of fun. We then partnered with an organic farm close by. We went out and visited them in the fall, just to get a sense of what it takes to be organic, what they grow, what are some of the challenges that they incur. We then went back out for a full day visit where we did soil testing. We then also used the iNaturalist to identify a number of plants that were growing there. We planted barrier plants, kind of a screen to help protect. And then we started doing a 6-week long test on tomato plants. And so each group was given a topic to research, whether it was fertilizer, whether it was pH of a water, whether it was source of a water, whether it was fertilizer, how much fertilizer, when to apply fertilizer during the growth. And every Friday they would measure the height of their plant. And so this Monday, we're going to start doing our conclusions and report out on that. So the students were really amazed. Some of the tomato plants literally turned purple because of the lack of nutrients. Obviously, some of the tomato plants in soil and rocky soil died. So it's a great experiment for students to study different aspects of growth. And to really understand what farmers need to worry about when they're growing their crops. So that was really fun. And then they got to take their tomato plants home. So that was a really fun activity that the students got excited about. For my anatomy, this was a much bigger project. So for my anatomy, we had studied the integumentary, the skeletal, the muscular system, a little bit of the nervous system, and the endocrine system. And so for this one, students were assigned a big research project. First, we went into and we studied the history of pesticide use in the Salinas area. We looked at alternatives. We did the mapping, the pesticide mapping activity that Eros shared with us. And that was actually really interesting to see how certain pesticides have changed over a period of time, hopefully becoming a little bit safer. And then they were assigned a family. So the preface was that they just finished medical school. They're getting ready to do their residency. They're working at a migrant medical center. And they each are assigned a family that is having an issue. So it's mom, dad, usually a couple of kids, and someone in the family is having a medical condition that is related to pesticides. So the students have to go out and do research using peer-reviewed. So I really stress that they don't just Google information, that they have to go out and look at pesticide testing on humans or at least mammals to find out the results from that. And so they have to come up and present this project to their peers and actually to the final. And can we click? And I actually included one of those presentation. And kind of just wanted to watch it for a minute just to kind of see that this is what the students put together. Hopefully it'll load.
I'm not getting any sound.
Okay, and that's fine. So they had to dress up as medical professionals, and they had to go through and do an introductory slide. So this one kind of tells you Martin, 45, is a widow after losing his wife to long respiratory illness. He has a daughter, he works on the farm, what he was diagnosed with. Then they have to go through, and this is again, it's all peer-reviewed articles that they've researched. You know, what is the pesticide, in an effort to educate the farmers. So I told them that they had to take this high-level peer-reviewed information and bring it down to like they were teaching my freshmen. So they had to be able to take this information down, simplify it, and make it accessible to the farm family so that they would understand what they were being exposed to, the dangers of it, and potentially what they can do to protect themselves. And this was their semester final. And yeah, I love the results. It was really, really wonderful. So those were the two projects that I did.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing. One of the things that we are passionate about is the opportunity to ask questions and inquire further. So if folks have questions they want to ask of Michelle, we're going to pause and let you do so. Feel free to unmute, ask as you will, and then we'll transition to the next person so that we're ready. Matt, are you willing to go next? We'll get you queued up as folks are asking questions. I see. Denise. Go for
Yes.
it.
I think I'm ready.
Ooh, go for it, Denise.
Okay, so I just had a technology question. So was that just Google Slides that they were using on that presentation? I've never seen video embedded with it like that.
Yeah, so they used a number of different recording techniques. It was up to them. So I received it in a couple of different formats. The only requirement is that I would be able to record it, but I didn't specify what they used. But I think that was Google Slides.
It was Google Slides and then they embedded video in it somehow?
Yeah, and we also use, oh, I can't think of what it is. So our school provides a couple of video programs that the students use.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I see Alyssa's hand. Go for it, Alyssa.
Hey, thank you so much. I got my hands full here, but I was really, really excited to hear about this project. I've also been doing some work with CSUMB multiple subject credential candidates who I teach, and talking about like mapping school safe zones for pesticide, like the no spray zones around schools and things like that. And my question is, possibly similarly to your project, a lot of stuff has come up where the teacher candidates, the CSUMB students who are adults, are sharing really deeply about, you know, family members seriously injured from pesticide exposure and things like that, and it gets really heavy. And I was curious if like the art aspect of this project, or there were any other resources from your work for kind of supporting and having that be at least a space of like solidarity and support, and not just kind of rushing through some of these emotionally heavy moments that could come up.
So my students, I work at Carmel High School, so I don't have students whose parents actually work or are exposed to the pesticides. But my goal was more that many of my students are wanting to go into the medical field, and I wanted them to be sensitive and to be aware of other, what their patients can potentially be exposed to, and be able to take that information and bring it down to a level that their patient and patient's family would be able to understand. And so I always share the experience that I said, if you ever go into a doctor and that doctor gives you really, really bad news, you will come out and you will not remember one word that that doctor said. And so I'm really promoting that the doctor should actually record that and present that to the patient and send it home with the family, really breaking down what the options are. And so that's the viewpoint that I have my students take.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. This is beautiful work.
Thanks so much, Michelle. We appreciate you. The next person that is going to share is Matt. So I'm going to queue up Matt's slides. I will happily go forward as you indicate, Matt. Just let me know when you want me to go to the next one.
Very good. Can you all hear me?
We can go for it.
All right. Hey, so just to get started, I teach 7th grade science at El Sasal Middle School. And we did not end up doing the BioBlitz activity, so you can go to the next slide. It was just bad timing for me to do that. But we did a couple projects. I worked with Mr. Cortman on some of these things, although I think he's presenting some different aspects of things that were going on at our school. And so I figured I would focus on this first project, which was interesting. You know, we have students that are right out of elementary school, and I wanted to, this is their first science class, you know, that's kind of full on every day, all year. And I wanted to keep it focused more on solutions. Our students are students that are directly affected by pesticides. So we did you know, and I threw together this is right at the end of the year. I kind of had I put this together, but trying to finish this up. And then we also did an earlier activity with brine shrimp. Should I do one or the other, or can I do both? I'm not sure. What do you?
You've got 5 to 7 minutes to share anything you like.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, we basically grew plants in light and dark environments, and counter to the students' expectations, most of them anyways. The plants in the dark grew taller, and we kind of talked about why. And that was just to begin their claims and evidence and reasoning and thinking about things. After that, you know, in December we started with project drawdown solutions. So I broke students up into groups of 3 or 4, and they studied a solution and presented those to the class. So then and this is right at the end of the year here. So we actually just finished yesterday. So with school. So and then I ended the year with having them work on watercolor projects to design a vision of the world wherein they did something positive, and a vision of the world in which they did nothing. You can actually see in this link, I'm not sure if that you can open that link. It was just it was to get them thinking about it was interesting. I had them just work on this to get started. I felt like the first 7th grade students with a lot of ELLs, like the pesticide map link, was too loaded with big words. But I know some of them would be ready for it. I mean, we have reading levels ranging anywhere from grade 3 to grade 11. in my class. So it's a big smear. And so I wanted to give them a chance to I mean, many of these kids' families do work in the fields. They probably bring dirt from the fields home in their shoes, you know. So, and I wanted them to at least start thinking about these issues as that there are many solutions to the problems facing us, not one. And I wanted them to be more in a solution-oriented mindset at this age than kind of a fearful mindset. Although, you know, but so we talked about how I had them watch a video on drone technology and how it's able to identify and map fields in real time, and so they can deliver if the farmer needs to protect their crops, they can deliver more pesticides more efficiently into very specific areas. So hopefully a lot less of it, and also more safely. Is that my minute warning?
Here,
And
let me switch
so
next. Sorry.
what was that?
Let me just switch to the pictures because I thought they were so beautiful.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. So they kind of at the end of the year, I just had them draw a watercolor vision. Those are the plants growing in the light back in the background. And then the plants growing in the dark were in that box covered with a drape. Um, and and then you could see that they were working on their projects. And so that it was so I meant a lot of just kind of different ideas of being involved in solutions to fix big problems in the world, and that there are lots of options. So that's
I love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you for that work. I want to make sure that folks have the opportunity to ask questions. I feel like the student art is so awesome. We can't wait to showcase this for the exhibition next year. So thank you for sharing it.
Yes,
Do
you're
folks have
welcome.
questions for Matt?
Can I just say something, Matt? I
Yes.
really love the fact that you had what if we do something and what if we don't do something, and having them draw both. I think that was great, and it really helped them to conceptualize those issues. I was wondering if I don't know if we got to that slide, or if there's a slide, Corin, about what worked and what didn't work, and if we were to do it, are you going to do it next year, and what would you change?
Yeah, I think I would spend more time looking at pesticides particularly, but I was not sure how to break through just the level of the language issue with that. So I'm not sure I want to do that. I think I definitely want to do something. Um, so I would I did try to focus on drones a little bit, but I don't want solutions to be necessarily all technological. I tell my students that there are also sociological movements and answers to these problems, just changing the way we live, changing our practices, and as we learned about in ESTA, we talked to all different kinds of farmers, and when they have so much money invested in a crop and something happens to it unexpectedly, and they're going to lose everything. I can see why using technology to use less pesticides and more appropriate pesticides would be good. I thought the website on the pesticides farming thing was pretty complex. I didn't give enough time to get into it, but I think I let some of my students explore it. But just to look at the big long names of so many pesticides. might be something you could do a little bit more easily in high school.
Mhm.
So
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing. That was brilliant. Perry, are you okay if we have you go next?
I sure am.
Could I, could I,
Okay,
Excellent.
there we go.
Eros is going to keep the slides.
can I
All righty.
interject one thing just about kind of the doom and gloom? And I agree that's an issue. I mean, I see it at the, undergraduate level and even among my graduate students. And, and I think emphasizing solutions is the way to go. And also that there's opportunities for, to find jobs and, make a good living, support your family and work on these issues. And I try to lay out what those opportunities might be. And I can see how I think you're focusing on that is really valuable.
All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Perry. Perry, you're up.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. I want to start by just saying I have had the best time in the past 3 years working on this program. I have loved working with everyone. I've learned so much. And I'm really just starting, I feel like, bringing a lot of this into the school. Let's see, we're looking. Oh, okay. So this was the thing that I worked on this year with the agriculture. So at our site in the Salinas high schools, we're switching curriculum in biology for the 9 billionth time. And so it's a little bit more complicated to do some of these projects because integrating them within our curriculum is a little challenging. But this year I wanted to look with my students at things that they're familiar with, things that they really know, and then sort of integrate some of these ideas and the arts into that as we explore some of these ideas further. So, the first half of the year, I worked with my biology students, which was about 80 kids. Um, and we were focusing in our curriculum on migration and stuff. So I pulled in monarch butterflies, which they're all familiar with. It's a very local phenomena. And we talked about the impact of pesticides on a very small level on things like insects, which um, again, when kids first look, they're like, "Oh, it's a butterfly. I don't really care because it's pretty, but whatever." But then we talk about things like pollination. We talk about food webs and food chains. We look at climate change and we talked about how migration patterns are really changing worldwide. So it was I really liked this thing that we tried. I would definitely do it again next year with some modifications, of course. For the art project, my kids they had to find images of their little monarchs. They had to draw them. We created a whole poster. We looked at a worldwide map. We focused on the Americas, looking at migration patterns. We talked a little bit about culture. Um, Monarch butterflies and culture in Mexico. There's some big parts of that. Um, and then, unfortunately, the second half of this semester, I had a bad accident, so I've been home away from school, which is why I haven't been coming to the ESTA program. So my plans next year will increase using sort of this information. What I'd like to do next year is actually try some of the natural dyes and have the kids make a quilt using fabric that they've dyed, mapping the agricultural chemicals from some of the mapping that we've looked at. I think that could be just spectacular. And the kids really, my experience with my students, which is mostly freshmen right now, the arts just draw them in so much. It's a great place to start. It's also a great place to bring in some of the other discussions. So that was what I was able. Yeah, it was really fun. Um, and I have all the fabric too. And we're starting to practice our plant dyes along with what Aaron's taught us. So the project that I did the year before, Eros, if you want to mosey on back, uh, there we go. So last year, I worked with a much smaller group. So I teach a group of freshmen in our School Scholar Academy. These are kids that have failed classes forever. They're not, they don't have learning challenges. They just don't do well in school. And they don't like school. They don't want to be there and they're not interested in learning. So, I thought it'd be really fun to kind of use those kids because I thought if I can get them motivated, it's really good for them because they were. Okay, sorry. I hope you all can hear me again. Um,
Yes.
so we talked about all these issues in the agriculture. We talked about particulate matter. We talked about plastics and microplastics. I also did some work with my marine bio class, but this was really my focus. So the kids, you can kind of see what some of the stuff they did. They they did some very structured work at the beginning in terms of arts. We did some collage. They had to do pencil sketches, and then we did black and white, just markers, doing the particulate matter at a microscopic level. And then finally, they painted. They had canvases and they painted. Um, and they really got involved, which was really wonderful. Because again, this particular group of kids, they're challenging to get them to show interest. So this was for me really successful. I also really liked, I didn't put it in here, but I also liked what I was able to do with my marine biology kids, talking about microplastics. We talked about um, all the, recycled this, recycled fabric. And we talked about what happens when you wash all that plastic fabric and where those microplastics end up. So that's not actually a solution. So those are things that we talked about in both those classes. Um, Things that I found didn't work for me for my classes, and again, a lot of this has to do with things like teaching style and who you're teaching this particular year. Um, I found that starting off data driven was a total wash for my kids. They couldn't see the connections. A lot of them have big barriers in their minds, just like kind of with the arts. I can't do this. Sure, you can. But what I found for me is if you kind of walk them through in a structured way and then sort of set them free, they really took off. So that was marvelous to see. Um, Gosh, I'm not sure what else you would like me to share, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Oh, that's perfect. Arrows, can you go to the last slide and then we'll give folks the chance to ask questions?
Yes, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries at all. That'll give folks a moment. I always have difficulty formulating my times. I need a minute just to get my brain working. Um,
Yeah.
I really appreciate, Perry, the comment about students who are not engaged. That's something that this year I've been wrestling with, where I have students who take off and leap with a project, and then I have students who are a little bit more hesitant, really not necessarily in a space where they believe in themselves. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Well,
Thank you so
you.
much, Eros. I want to, any questions from folks for Perry?
Brenda, if you're
Yeah,
speaking, we
I
can't hear
got it.
you.
Yeah, Perry, I'm very inspired, especially about the Scholar Academy, which I think is the name of the group that had special needs. I really wondered whether bringing it back to their own health was a way of getting them inspired, or they really didn't care about that as well.
So, so I also teach health. I teach a lot of classes. So my particular cohort of kids, they're children, and I, sometimes really struggle to remember that because they can be, quite frankly, real snots. Um, but these are kids that we just did our whole little health thing on smoking and vaping, and naturally they come to class every day having vapes. So the connections for them, they really struggle with, but they can express it because when I have them like do coursework they can tell me, they understand there's particulate matter in vapes and it's bad for their lungs. So they know those things. So what I'm kind of hoping that they take away down the road, because again, this is a process, not a one and done, um, is that, they're going to be able to say, nah, I shouldn't do that, or maybe I could change this, or gosh, I remember Miss Reels. Because again, as an educator, people come back years later and say, I remember this thing that you did. And I'm like, wow, you learned it. So that's kind of my long-term goal with this group of kids, because they're pretty great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Perry. I'm really excited about your quilt and the natural dyes. I hope
Yeah.
that I can come and take pictures or see it as it's coming into being. That sounds like a really awesome project. I'm so
Thank you.
excited. I'm
Uh,
wondering if Heather would be willing to share next.
Can I just congratulate you, Perry, also? And
Oh.
I've been here, I've been having trouble connecting, but I've just been really enjoying everyone's projects. I'm so proud of everyone. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you,
you.
Edith. Thank you, thank you. Heather, would you be willing to share next? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Take it away.
Okay. I'm actually going to share the overview outline in the chat too. So you can, I don't know why I didn't embed pictures in the slide, but I didn't. And this one's all about the pictures. So at the bottom of the slide, or the link I just put in the chat, you can go down to images of student work. Some of them are named just help you guide in that. So the project I did, I'm currently the academic coach at Seaside High School. And so I don't technically have my own classroom, but what I do have is amazing teachers who are willing to invite me into their classrooms and teach lessons alongside them or for them. And so in this example, that's a great example right there to start with. This was an advanced ceramics class that I pushed into for about 5 weeks. And these are students who traditionally have not had exposure to environmental science at all. And environmental science is my background. So it was nice to be in a space that kind of really required me to start from the ground up in building up their background knowledge first. And so we started with thinking, our driving question here was, how does, or now I have to think about it. What is the impact of agriculture in Monterey County on the human experience? And so they had kind of different experiences to go and explore through a web quest. Many of them were very drawn to chamacos, was one of the examples that they had. So they were super drawn to chamacos, and they were really fascinated by eutrophication and how they had never quite made such a deep connection between what we do on land impacts our water quality directly. And so a lot of students were fascinated with that. And then the impact of invasive species on our current crops too was something, and how that impacts our economy in the area. Climate change also. So in this class, we spend some time also exploring what it means to be an environmentalist. And so we did some environmental science spotlights for students too, so they can see how they could envision themselves as environmentalists, because what I wanted them to do ultimately was use this artwork as a way to inform the public in a different way. So they created truly, even the ceramics teacher was like, I've never seen this level of work before. And so I think because they had such a purpose, and I told them that I was there to curate their art and that it was going to be on display, which it was at the Salinas Valley Fine Art Museum on Main Street in Salinas. So we had it displayed there for a week. And I think that elevated their engagement, that real world meaningful application. Part of their art too was they had to do a writing alongside their art to help explain to the viewer the science behind their art. And then in addition, the second like paragraph was explaining to the reader, the viewer, like what specific choices they made in their art piece that would like deepen their knowledge. So it might have been color choice, it might have been texture, it might have been the size or the scale of certain things. Like one student with her tile with the strawberries on it, she made the strawberries like really big to represent like non-organic farming, and she talked about that in her writing. Overall, this was a great project. The advanced ceramics teacher is like doing it every year. Love this. We're submitting their artwork to the Monterey County Fair. The kids are super excited about just making their art and learning public. What questions might you have?
Ooh, that's so perfect. I'm going to stop sharing and let Denise Hardaway know that she's up next. But I want to make sure folks have a chance to ask questions because I love this art project. It's such a cool way of engaging students.
That is awesome. They're doing like, you know, college graduate level work.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant to give them real world opportunities tied to it. It helps just validate them and their work in such a profound way. And I can't wait to see it at the fair. This is so exciting. Congratulations.
Really beautiful, beautiful artwork, amazing artwork.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to ask, what were they interested in Chamacos about? So, because
They were fascinated about like the long-term impacts, and I think it was just like this idea of like, wow, children are impacted, like just if they like live close to an agricultural field, not even if they're working on the field, like really blew their minds. And like at Seaside High, we I think like we didn't know maybe that we have migrant families, and there was multiple students in the class where they were like, so you know, my uncle or my cousin, and so they really saw themselves in the Chamacos kind of experience in their families. It really just resonated with them and gave them more purpose.
that warms my heart. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Denise, you're up next. Eros, would you be willing to share slides?
Thank you. And actually, if you could just forward to that first picture slide that I have, because that actually kind of says more about it. It's not the greatest picture. So my challenge this year was kind of different from everybody else's. I think I was doing, I lost count, 6, 7 projects that I was trying to integrate together. So ESTA being one of them, of course, one of the primary ones, but we were doing a Wested project STEM Strong. So we threw in some engineering, and we were doing limpets and watershed guardians, and we did trout in the classroom, and we did this thing called Trashy Tuesdays, and we did a community trash pickup. And so there were lots of moving parts. And then throw on top of that, I am teaching TK through 8th grade. So my age range is literally from 4 to 14. So there really wasn't a way to do one project that kind of covered everything. Instead, it was kind of managing all these balls in the air at the same time. That was the challenge for me for this year. But and then you also throw on top of it the fact that I have no curriculum to guide me. So I have no like sort of backbone for everything. So I'm making everything up as I go along. I do only have a total of 73 students in our whole school, which helps. But I think that was the biggest challenge, was integrating everything. In San Lucas, our biggest issue is water quality. We have not had potable water for 10 years. And so that was kind of our driving force for this whole investigation. And then we pulled in things like plastics and trout in the classroom. We usually, we did that as kind of a way to pull in the littles too, so that they had a stake in why water quality was important. You know, we're going to be releasing our little trouties into the Salinas River. And so we want to make sure the water is good for them. So, and this is in San Lucas. It's like we're 10 miles south of King City in the Salinas Valley. And so we're in a very agricultural area. We have farming all around us, and we talk a lot about past farming practices that have led to the situation that we're in. So my fourth graders know all about nitrogen in the water, and they had developed these little systems to try and, when there was a big water event, when we had really big downpours of rain, to try and keep the runoff from going either underground or into the Salinas River. And so they had made little fake projects using trays and different medium to try and filter it. But they got the idea that we need to do something to kind of capture it, and then also reducing it, the runoff. And we didn't even really get into how you could reduce it going into groundwater, because that's a little bit above 8-year-olds. It turned out, I think, better than I could have hoped, because I wasn't sure how to meet the needs of all of these different projects that we were doing and tie it all together. And we presented it at the aquariums ops. A lot of you were there and saw that. I think that is kind of what we used as our culminating project that tied everything together. And I think it went together really well. The kids could see the connection between the ocean. When we did the Limpets program, they knew we were counting sag crabs because we wanted to know the health of Monterey Bay, because that's where our Salinas River goes into. And they knew that we're testing the water quality. We're doing watershed guardians because we want to know, is there nitrogen or what other water quality issues are there in the Salinas River. And so that's kind of how we tied everything together. And then, of course, all the little kids super love the trout in the classroom. They were I can't believe how excited they were about it. They wrote goodbye letters to the trout. The kindergartners were the only one that didn't go on our trout release field trip, because water in kindergartners is scary. But they wrote letters to the trout to say goodbye. And I wish I had pictures of those, because those were the cutest ever. They said, "Goodbye, little trouties. I hope you eat good and stay and get strong," and some really cool connections at a 4-year-old level to the environment. And so that's one aspect of it that I really liked. And I'm not going to do ocean plastics next year. We're going to focus on climate change instead. But I don't think we'll ever quit doing Trashy Tuesdays or doing community cleanups and tying in plastics anyways. And we're never going to quit studying our watershed, because that's it ties into their health so strongly. And we're not going to quit trying to get potable water in San Lucas. And so that's kind of I don't know how much time it took, but that's kind of the summary of all of our projects tied together. And then actually, if you'll go into the next slide, we did tie in some art projects, not as many as I wanted to, just because of time constraints. And also how do you have a project for the TK and the 8th graders that they can all excel on? So we settled on Zentangle art. And we did this, you can kind of see the display on the ceiling of my classroom. We did individual Zentangle fish, and which the ones in the middle are like my little kindergartners were getting into it, and they were getting the idea of patterns and dividing it up into equal parts and that kind of thing. And then the older kids getting a little bit more creative with their art. And then we did per class, we did one big fish each. And the whole class participated, and they each had a section. And then the little kinders did little stuffed trout too that they just colored. So that was kind of the major art that we did. We did some like leaf prints and stuff like that too, but you guys have seen that kind of stuff before. So that is our project. And again, we'll probably be doing most of that again next year, but in just a little bit different form.
That's so awesome.
It was so fun, Corin. You know what I went through last year? Last year was horrible. And this year was, in 23 years, this year was hands down my favorite year teaching ever. It was glorious.
I'm so glad to hear that. That brings a lot of joy. I want to make sure folks have a chance to ask questions. And I just want to give a heads up. Andy, you're up next.
It's incredible how many different things you're able to do. My gosh, and amazing. And I can't believe you guys, the water situation. I remember a student of mine making a film about it 10 years ago. Oh, but that's
and the thing is, we asked them, so how does this impact your life? And they're like, I don't know, it doesn't really impact me. They're 10 years old, they're 12 years old. They've never known anything different.
Yeah.
So it's just normal to them, and they don't feel the injustice of it. And so I keep trying to press to them how this is not normal, and we need to fight to get you guys water. This is not okay. I mean, it should be like a national headline.
Yeah.
You know, it's deplorable. And we keep getting, I'm sorry, I'll just call it mostly lip service about solutions. But nothing has been done yet.
And Denise, I'm sure you use this as an opportunity to discuss why they don't, I mean, what the impact is, why
Yeah.
they can't drink their water, how it would affect their health if they drank the water.
Yeah. Well, and it's even relatable to the pretty small kids because you can tell them you would just get sick. You would start throwing up and puking. I mean, that's, you know, the subtle health issues are hard for them to understand, but they can understand that one. And, you know, because of course the high nitrogen has now led to high chloroforms and all kinds of bacteria in the wells and everything. And I finally just got a hold of all of our well reports. So we're going to be using that next year. And I think my big takeaway for what I'm going to do different next year is starting earlier. We have to start earlier because we were scrunching to try and get stuff done for Watershed Guardians in the end of April. And we need to start earlier. Yeah.
I guess, you know, I don't teach grade school, but I wonder if there's a way that you can get them to write letters to people that
absolutely. They've actually had water board meetings at our school, and we've had the older kids go and just sit in on them, and they pretty much talk over their heads. But yeah, we did write letters to them, to state board, you know, but that has pretty much, I mean, like I said, they tell us, oh, we're listening to you. We want to hear your concerns, but nothing changes. You know, they said there's $1 million allocated to it now. Yay, they're doing something. $1 million isn't going to do it. It's not going to change anything. So the problem needs to be fixed.
I have one other comment, Corinne, if I have time, and which is, will you tie in climate change to agriculture next year, given that you're going to focus more on climate change?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because climate change is, you know, it's huge in agriculture. It's, you know, one of the biggest impacts is where farming is still going to be sustainable. So yeah. And I really like focusing on climate change. I did a lot of my own kind of professional development stuff, going to Antarctica and actually studying, you know, how climate change is affecting fish in Antarctica. And so I have a lot of stuff to tie into it as well. And so hopefully it will be interesting to the kids.
Great.
I love the connections to ocean and human health. Enid, go for it. Last comment.
Can the fish write back?
And that would be great. I didn't even think of that. Oh, I should do that. We have 3 more days of school left. I love your idea. Thank you so much.
That's brilliant. Oh, that's so good. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Cortman. Andy, you're up.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hey, I'm Andy Cortman. I'm at El Sasal Middle School with Matthew England. And is that my first slide? I thought I had something before that. There we go, the BioBlitz. So BioBlitz, I was so excited because I love observing insects, observing birds, identifying plants. But I tried it for a couple periods, and the students were killing the insects that they captured. So I stopped doing it that day and kind of expanded it to a more broad observation opportunity in the garden. So whenever we saw pollinators in the garden, everything would stop. We would try to get a picture. We would try to make identifications and then talk about what the garden is doing for the school. So that's how I kind of did the BioBlitz. The kids made signs. Oh, and let me put this in the chat. This is just really easy way to make garden signs using they look it up by the scientific name. There's the common name, and the column that is missing there is the Spanish name. And then they do a little bit of research on calscape.org, which there's a link down at the bottom of just it's mostly images of butterflies. So they end up with, like, bring up an example to my camera, something like that. So a nice pretty picture of a plant that's in the garden and the pollinator that would be nice if we saw, including all the science, English, Spanish, and they ended up coloring these, but before they colored them, I scanned them, and I'm turning some of them into laser engraved signs on acrylic with my big machine that I finally figured out. So not this year's different from last year. Last year I had the garden, but this year we started making more signs, so the students were able to identify. There's a picture of a bug that we caught in a cup, and I don't know that I ever got to iNaturalist, but I have my iNaturalist account, and I would share that with the students. But I would love for the students to have access, and I think this is all doable on iNaturalist, to a class list. So that's how we did BioBlitz. Then for ag, and Matthew alluded to this, we're in the middle of the fields, and our students live next to the fields. Our students work in the fields. The fields are a big part of their life. And in the middle of Salinas, there's fields, but it used to be a lake, and it turns into a lake every winter. It's formerly called Carr Lake. It's a Big Sur Land Trust property, and they changed the name to the, oh gosh, I forget the name of the language of the Esselen Ohlone Cosinoan tribe that they use, but they renamed it Ensign, which means blackberry in that language. We took a field trip there, and this was in the middle of our of a watershed unit. So students were able to see the connection between the rain, the snow on the mountains, Alisal Creek, our nearest body of water, and then this basin where all the stuff collects. And we did water quality samples there, and we were able to see that there's a lot of nitrates there. And they were making connections to Monterey Bay too. So as they live in Salinas throughout the years, they'll be able to see the flooding patterns and see the direction of the flow to Monterey Bay. On that field trip, they also planted native plants, some of the same ones that we grow in our garden, and we made a big deal about the connection between these trees, oak trees specifically, that we're growing, and then the 200-year future of this place, and how it'll be oak trees someday. A picture didn't get onto this one. There's a picture of the book Salinas. Such a good book by Carol McKibben, where I got a lot of information about the history of systemic racism in the area and in ag, and how it affects human health, namely like city services in East Salinas. So just the history of not getting good sewage, good roads, good lights is highlighted in that book by Carol McKibben. I'm actually going to see her later today. But on this field trip, we talked about racism, and then talked a little bit about how by planting plants and increasing access to green space, we're helping the mental health outlook of the community. So a small part of human health. And then we did not get into a lot of the heavy stuff, more the implications. But Michelle and Alyssa, you guys were talking about the the heaviness and creating that space. And I feel like students were able to express themselves through a lot of the art that we did. There's a picture of the garden, and small groups for the garden worked best. To do the work in the garden, big groups was chaos. And I would excuse some groups to just hang out in the garden and do art. So here's another thing in the camera. There's another thing that we did. This is my example. And Enid will know about this, but Perry, you'd be interested to maybe look into the codices of Cortez's men. One of them in particular, as they came to Mexico and started cataloging the plants. Anyway, they had to make their own pigments. So this is coffee berry that we took from our garden, and I applied baking soda to one, vinegar to another. Anyway, there's the before they made the codices, they made these things to figure out the colors. The colors kind of look the same now, but one used to be bright yellow, and then this one was orange. But they would do art activities like this in the garden and get real messy in the garden. But then about that heaviness that Michelle and Alyssa were talking about, so let me show you. So we made these, and maybe if you go to the next slide. Yeah, let me talk about this for a second. We added to our Spartan garden by adding more boxes. And no, that's not natural pigment. And yes, they are lined with plastic. Oof, I gotta try to figure out another way. But we're able to have this garden in our school where otherwise it's so much asphalt. And we're able also to tighten the food loop, I guess. So eating stuff from the garden. And that's where my garden club came in. This year I had a garden club, so a small group to do fun things with, like eat lunch together, try pasture raised eggs, see the difference, talk about taste, talk about gardening practices. If you go to the next page, maybe the page, okay, I'll talk about the space for heaviness. So we made these little books, and these books are really silly.
I'm wondering if we could check off the slide so we can see Andy better.
Yeah, that might be okay. Here's Maggie's book. So it's like a comic book. Here's Robert's book. And you show you how to make this book. Fold it in half this way. Fold it in half this way. Cut off this part right here, staple it right here, and you have a 6-page book. So easy. But they end up writing something about the content in the middle of the pages. But then let me talk about this space, like Robert's book. So he's got this cover where he kind of just goes wild. On the back, he advertises for a local business, so it's kind of part of what's in his life. Talks about these silly introductory pages where he talks about what his science class looks like. Sometimes another book we talked about our favorite songs. So there's this space to get silly, or a space just to talk about whatever is on their mind. And Enid's talked about this, that when they're doing the art, whatever they need to talk about comes up to the surface, and they're able to talk about it with their peers while we're science adjacent, and then they have a record of how they were, and that they can refer back to at the end of the year. So that's really fun. Am I way over on time?
No, that's
Uh,
perfect. I want to give folks the chance to ask questions. Laura, I'm gonna pull up your slides. Give me just 2 moments and hopefully folks can ask questions. And thank you, Andy, for answering them while I pull up slides.
So Andy, I'm assuming that in the garden, you also got to talk about a natural garden, no pesticides versus use of pesticides. And we got to talk about how the pesticides might affect their health and why it's important to maybe eat organic, especially for some fruits and vegetables. I mean, I'm sure you got into that.
With the small groups, yeah. So the garden club was a space for that where lots of the students have family members who work out in the fields, and we were able to talk about that pretty candidly, and just propose safety issues or just talk about experiences with doctors that they've had. Um, for example, my garden club president, uh, anyway, she had health issues, but we were able to talk about just the importance of exercise, the importance of diet, stuff like that. So just having a small group to as a platform to talk about those things was good, and we did get to um, some more stuff that they probably wouldn't be comfortable sharing in a larger group.
Mhm. And
I
I
think
guess this is for, and just finish this, Anita. I guess this is for all of the people that have presented about this, but to actually bring home to them, not just the policy issues and, the use of pesticides and potential health effects, but also how to prevent their own exposures, especially if they have parents that are farm workers or they themselves work on the farms.
Yes, and at Elsa Sol, there used to be more of a thing where you can smell the when they fertilize the fields is mostly what we were able to smell, and those would prompt discussions about different forms of ag, and especially the eggs. The eggs were such a mind opener for the students because these eggs that I would bring, I eat a hard boiled egg every day, but I pasture raised eggs, and the differences between the quality of eggs that my students were used to versus the pasture raised eggs prompted a lot of discussion about different gardening techniques, different ag practices.
I want to give Enid a chance to go and then Denise.
Oh, I just wanted to say it's like I feel like the best thing for their health is that you're creating these outdoor experiences for them that are somewhat unstructured too, that there is just this space to like, now you can always go outside when you feel you need to. And it's really interesting too to think about the gardens and the materials that we use to do urban gardening. And you know, give yourself a huge pat on the back. It's amazing. So proud of you.
Thank you.
Hey, Andy, I just had a quick question. What was the type of laser cutter that you used for the acrylic?
It's called a glow forge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, $5,000, and I asked on a good day because they gave it to me, and I don't know technology stuff, so the coaches have been helping me figure it out. I'm also part of the Ocean Guardian grant, and
Uh-huh.
my laser engraver and the grant hit so much red tape. My Salinas Union High School district's under a lot of scrutiny right now, and just with the things involving money are yeah, real scrutinized and take a long time to get finally to me, including
Yeah.
the Blowforge.
Cool. Thanks. It sounds like something I need for my makerspace.
Yeah.
I appreciate your persistence and resilience, Andy. With that, we're going to turn it over to Laura. Laura, you're up. Eros is going to share your slides. Go for it. And just let us know when you want us to click or advance slides.
Sorry, my computer's not cooperating, so I'm not really Matthew. I'm just using his computer. So I'm Laura and I teach at Calabasas Elementary School in Freedom, which is sort of an agricultural suburb of Watsonville. And we did a lot of things this year. Some of them are actually not even on this deck, but I'll just plow on through. We did do a bio blitz with kids from kindergarten to 6th grade. It was pretty interesting, the different drawings. The girl who's holding up the mosquito is a 2nd grader, I think. She's a pretty amazing artist, if you ask me. You know, there's a theme going on in all these presentations about, you know, where do you move with hope and where do you move with concern? And these are kids who are pretty much blanketed with concern at home. I teach at a school where between 80 and 90% of our parents are working either for Driscoll's or for another agricultural company in Watsonville, bringing you your nice organic strawberries, mostly, but not entirely. I think the BioBlitz was really important because kids connected with all the small beings around us. And we started everything out by showing them how to care for the animals. And it might not work at middle school, but in elementary school, if you say that until we look closely, we don't know if they are friends or foes, that makes it easier for kids not to want to smush them, at least little kids. You can go ahead and switch to the next slide. If anybody's curious about those microscopes, I'll certainly bend your ear about them. Can you switch for me, please? Great. So the thing that really worked about the BioBlitz was getting kids out and looking together at the animals. And we did get some amazing art. We also got a lot of, you know, like bugs that were just like, you know, 3 blobs with some legs. So what didn't work was the identification. Everything was super rushed. And because my garden, thanks Corinne for the garden, you should come see it. It looks amazing. Because the garden is still kind of in its infancy out there, not a lot of kids have been out. But these 5th graders in the picture at the bottom, they're the ones that did all the heavy labor this year. And so I owe them a huge pile of paletas on Tuesday, actually. But I think next year what I would do is I would train these bigger kids earlier in the year to use Seek and to help the little kids capture insects and look at them more closely and draw them. So I'd definitely do it again next year. We can go ahead and forge on ahead. This was our big push this year, our Eat What You Take campaign. Our students on the green team, which is a couple dozen kids in upper grades, they worked really hard this year to learn about what is going wrong in our cafeteria and particularly about the impact of food waste. And we're just now starting a strong partnership with Esperanza Community Farms, which is literally down the street from us. And we just had a field trip this past week to the farm. So we're learning a lot about the food supply chain and what's going on with how our food is messing with our health, but also with the health of the planet. And some of the products that came out of this were this gorgeous digital logo created by a student. I am not kidding you. You'll see a full color version in a few more slides. And really getting the kids, all the kids, to understand that we really need to put the food waste in the food waste bin so it doesn't end up in the landfill. So we got to visit the central kitchen and find out, we got to watch them put our food in plastic. We went to a local grocery store that's trying to fix that problem. And we also went to the farm. So some of our activities, in addition to the logo, we made zines, slidecast. I had one team that just put a podcast in the National Public Radio podcast competition for students yesterday, like 6 hours before the deadline. And then we also made some interesting announcements, including little animated videos to let kids know what we expected of them. Go ahead and switch me. So there is our logo in color, and that's the artist standing next to the lunch trash. So you can't barely see, but we actually, with our Ocean Guardian money, we bought a digital postal scale, which made weighing the trash so much easier because before that, the kids were actually standing on an old school scale, you know, the kind that the nurse used when you were little with the little slidey things. So this was great. And we used data from the cafeteria waste and also from a survey the kids did about which lunch they liked. And then they ran into a roadblock. The kids asked our food services director if we could get rid of some of the packaging, and she said no because of rules. We contacted the state. The girls eventually ended up speaking to the USDA liaison from Jimmy Panetta's office, who told us the same thing, that it's just too expensive to go to reusables. So for next year, we're hoping to get a data dashboard up so the kids will be able to see what's going on with the trash. We will definitely be continuing this campaign next year with leaning toward climate change, but still continuing to think about packaging, especially packaging that probably should not be heated up. Go ahead and next slide. So the plastics campaign spilled over to some little kids in a second grade class who decided they weren't just worried about plastic packaging, they were worried about throwing away their cafeteria trays every day. So they decided to see how long a cafeteria tray can last. So they decorated the bottom of their cafeteria trays and they saved them for as long as they could, and they collected the data, which the older kids presented at the aquarium. But what the older kids were doing in terms of researching, there's a lot of information on those packages. And so we learned a lot about the different kinds of plastics. And if you go to the next slide, I think I saved a page of one of the zines. So what the kids did with these packages was they turned the food into characters, and they made little zines about them. That was a lot of work. They were creating the characters in Adobe Express and porting them over to Book Creator, and there was a lot of technology involved, and it was kind of itchy. And I might do this again next year. I'm also working with Mireya Gomez at Esperanza Community Farms to try to develop a hands-on activity to model the supply chain for food, and also with Seabury Nakbar at Ocean Guardian, who has a great activity for guessing about or estimating how much oil is involved, how much fossil fuels are involved in getting food to your plate and on into the waste stream and beyond. Next slide. This isn't actually done, but all but 2 of the panels went up this week. So this isn't part of the other stuff we were doing, but the garden that you see in front of those windows is a cooperative project that was funded in part by ESTA and part by Granite Rock and a lot by Watsonville Wetlands Watch, who provided all those plants. The kids created an artificial creek in what was a vacant piece of dirt. And Corinne set us up with an illustrator who made a giant coloring book. It wasn't that big, but it was pretty big. And the kids colored it with oil pastels. We sent it out to Monterey Sign and they installed it mostly last week. And the last 2 panels will go in this week. So thanks so much for making all that happen. This has been a great year. I'm done-ish.
Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. That's like, wow. It's
I
amazing.
know. The 5th graders are super excited to do their graduate, the ones that are promoting, and the 6th graders who are all leaving us are really excited to do their graduation pictures in front of it.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic job. I love that solution. It's fantastic. And all the work, all the
And-
amazing work. How incredible.
Enid, you'll be excited to know that one of the fun things about it is when you look at it, you can see the crayon marks because they're huge.
Yes, that's fantastic. I love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. And do Monterey Signs, they're great to work with, right?
They made a big mistake, which I don't want to go into here, but they are eating the mistake. They were going to charge us another $500 to fix the mistake that was theirs.
Oh.
There's a duct behind the window, and they came and they looked and they measured and they didn't say anything about it until they came to install and realized they couldn't get behind the duct. So the last 2 pieces are going to go on the outside.
Okay, well,
It'll work. They're
glad
fine.
it worked out. Sorry to hear that.
No, it's all going to be, and they're going to get it done before graduation.
Yay.
That's so awesome.
And
Any
Brenda,
other questions
please
for
do.
Laura before Amanda? You're up next.
Brenda, please do come for a field trip. I'm going to let Matthew have his computer back.
Okay, Amanda, are you okay if I share? I hope. Oh. 3, Sweet. Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me? I apologize.
We can. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, just tell
All
me
right,
when you
thank
want to.
Whenever you're ready. Okay.
Can you see
All
the
right.
screen okay?
Yep, I sure can. Thank
Excellent.
you. Okay. So this year was a bit of a smaller project than last year, but we worked primarily on our biggest activity this year was actually more the BioBlitz project. So we had about 50 students on campus, which included 7th and 8th graders, and then we had some high schoolers that some of them actually worked in the project back when they were in junior high. They worked with the science club at the high school, and the kids started with just nature walks and sketches, which was great. We used some of the ideas that we did at the beginning of the year with our nature sketches and just nature walks, just walking around campus. And then we moved into doing like an official like ecology type mini BioBlitz activity. So there's a great one out there that we used as a like a template. And then after that, we moved into doing a more like a 1 month long iNaturalist BioBlitz project. So we started a regional project. We did one for the Sacramento River watershed. And then we also did one for the Salinas Valley as well. And the cool thing about iNaturalist, if anybody hasn't done developed their own project yet, is that once you start it, anyone that uses anyone in that region based on your standards, their data will also be included, those who make observations. They have really great statistics. So the students had a lot of fun looking at all the different insects and animals that they found themselves, and also that a lot of other community members have found. And then they got to make scientific questions based using their data. Like they might have said, like, what were the most common spiders that were found, or arachnids that were found, or just insects in general, or beetles, or the most common invasive species that were observed. So they came up with some different categories, and then they learned how to, the 7th graders learned how to use Google Sheets and then make pie charts and look at the percentage of insects based on which ones they chose, which category they chose. And then they also, that was like the primary BioBlitz. And then we merged over through, also they did used the big part in our class is just whenever we do illustrations, we try to avoid anything acrylic paints, plastic-based markers. We've been doing that. So we used all natural inks to do posters to promote like biodiversity, as well as we also did posters to promote Earth Day and Earth Week. And then they did some illustrated poems that went to the Earth Day poster for the American Chemical Society. And that was all using all natural materials when they made their posters. And then let me see if we can, I don't know if we can go to, oh, that's fine. That slide's fine. Yeah, so I guess some examples. So I think the mini BioBlitz was effective, but there's just so little data, but that is kind of data too, right? So on campus, we just marked out a little square region and looked and counted insects in that region, that little square. They just really didn't have much data at all, but that, I mean, that is kind of data. So there's very few insects found. It's also, they do use some pesticides on the, on the grass on campus. So we really liked the iNaturalist app, and that it had such large data numbers and allowed students to see real-time like citizen-based statistical analysis. Also talk about like, do you think this is valid data? Is it not valid data? And then our biggest issue, I think, was when we were doing sketches, it was just they were having a hard time with details because we were just out, out and trying to do details, and we didn't really catch the insects. We just allowed them to draw as they saw. And then yeah, the mini BioBlitz, I think it was just a region we chose. So I think that was, I definitely want to do it again, but maybe not in the area we did, because it just didn't have a lot of impact. So maybe on a nature walk, we'll try a mini BioBlitz in the future rather than on campus. So, but Yeah. And so we kind of had like a multifaceted project, but we want to increase also as part of it, increase like the awareness of how plastic pollution and waste has negative impact on the terrestrial and ocean ecosystem as well. So we basically integrated like okay, we don't see a lot of biodiversity, we don't see a lot of insects in general. Like the students noticed that, and they noticed we started out with that data, 90% of all insects. I think that's the next slide. 90% of all insects have been, there's a decrease of 90%. And so of insects. And so based on that, what could be impacting insect biodiversity? So we talked about, so this is our, this is our project. And then this was like the data that we collected. And then we also collected data for the Salinas Valley region. Well, we didn't personally, but we started a project, and then community members put data in there. So if anybody is in the region of the Salinas Valley and would like to look at that data, they can just join the project. And if you click the statistics button, you can actually see all the observations. You can do it by category. The students can see raw data and then can use that data to make their own questions and look at, we've even made food webs with the data. So it's really neat to use actual local data. So, and this is just an example of one of the students' little mini projects. And so, and then here's just, these were considered the favorite insects that the students observed themselves. So we had like the snake fly, and I'm sorry, I have a little cold. And the sulfur winged grasshopper. And then, so these were their favorite insects. And then this is the nature walk that we took on our trip. And then around campus, they did like a trash pickup. And then this is just the data that they had. And then they promoted like not putting litter around campus as well after doing their nature walk. And they also picked up trash along the nature trail as well. So they noticed there was a lot of trash around campus. And so since we used all natural materials with our inks, we just kind of did a little fun side next step project. So we used our old homework worksheets. They tore them all up. We didn't use like a shredder or anything. They just ripped them up, soaked them overnight. And then we just used a little screen. I didn't make it, but I know they are able to make the paper screens. They made their own paper. And then we had dried some little flowers from back when, we had wildflowers around our campus. We dried some petals, and then they could add that to their paper, and they used them to make like Mother's Day cards. And we also made cards for nursing homes with their paper. And some students actually used the paper for illustrations as well. So it was like basically, because they had a lot of fun making the paper. So people, when they had 3 minutes, could come over and just make extra paper and then use it for whatever they'd like to use it for. And so some kids really loved that part of the element of the project. It was just another way for them to reuse and reduce their waste. And even though it wasn't plastic, it's still, it was good that they were reusing this paper rather than just having to have it processed and shipped and brought in. They could just use their own work. So they had fun with that too. That was our other new element to our project this year. And yeah, and so this was some of the data that we used. We did like a claim evidence reasoning. This is one of our data points, is that they saw some connections with microplastics having direct effects on insect biodiversity and insect life due to the fact that microplastics were in biofragmentation. They were eating the microplastics instead of nutrients. So there was actually a decrease in insects population. This is some raw new data, but it was interesting. They could look at that and see kind of what they think of as negative effects on insects, population, and then what they call nil effects, meaning it possibly negative but not positive effect. This was a great like draw together of microplastics. And then this was just our trash pickup. So So if anybody's interested too, the link is there as well. And I'll share that as well to the article. And so, yeah, and this was just a fun way to do it. We just asked, how can you reduce plastic pollution? Did like a Google survey from all the students. And then this is just a fun way to show data. It's not very statistical, but it's just a fun way. I like it. It's just, we put them in like words that you think of how you can reduce, and we threw them into make this the word art, and it's free. So it was kind of a neat visual that we put up on campus as well. Just different ways to see their data themselves. And then, so this was the illustrated Earth Day poem contest. And so these three students, actually, they're going to, they won the regional for middle school from the American Chemical Society. And they're moving on to and their posters will be moving on to the national competition. It's actually really beautiful work. So they made poems, and their focus was on reducing waste, including like reducing use of disposable batteries was the focus. And so, but yeah, so they used all natural things. They used colored pencils, natural inks. They could use crayons because we had some crayons that were all natural. And then these posters were presented, and they were just really beautiful work. So they had a lot of fun with that. So that was some examples of work. And then these were examples of infographics that they put up online, as well as they put up around campus. So this was after we did like litter pickup and saw the waste. They picked items that they thought were most common, and then how can we reduce them? And actually, we have juice boxes given out at lunch and snack on our campus. So straws are still an issue actually on our campus. So we were promoting that, and also packaging. So each student kind of picked something that they saw most often, and then made a use this, not that poster. Okay, thank you.
I love the use this, not that. I want to give folks a chance to ask questions of Amanda. Thank you for your awesome work. And I just want to give a heads up, Jennifer, you're up next, and Eros is going to be sharing your slides.
Thanks so much.
Brenda, go for it.
So Amanda, I love the fact that when the children were talking about batteries, they also talked about the toxics and how it could affect their health. I was wondering, in the BioBlitz, I didn't see something filled in there. Did you get a chance to talk about what the lack of insects mean to?
Oh yes, yeah. So that was.
Can I just finish to the not only to the biodiversity, but also to their health and how that all ties together? I'm just curious because it wasn't filled in there.
Oh yes, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so at the end of the whole project, it was like a month-long BioBlitz. They did a claim evidence reasoning, like they did a like a little mini essay. And one of the questions were, how do you think this affects biodiversity and ecosystem health, including human health? So that was part of it was kind of like their test at the end of the unit, but they wrote an essay. So that was how we addressed it. I didn't address it as much, I think, as I did last year. Because we were focusing more on the ecosystem, but it was more as a secondary, as in if there's a lack of biodiversity, how is that affecting human health? So it was more a secondary element for sure this year.
I'm
so
really
we did delve more in that next year for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Amanda? Thank you for that brilliant work. I'm really just in awe. Okay, with that, we're going to turn it over to Jennifer. I think you might be on mute, my friend.
Well, if I may, I can chime in. At Everett Alvarez High School, Miss Jennifer Ostrowski and I have been working with grade 9 through 12. The upperclassmen were part of Jennifer's environmental studies, AP environmental studies, APE's classroom, and we really tried to pull a connection between how much money students spend on water bottles and how can we make more people, including our administration and district, aware about reducing single-use plastic water bottles, especially on campus. I hope that Jennifer is tuned in. I just know that this has been a consistent effort with a lot of different ages. So in my 10th grade classrooms, we really did try to focus on ways in which to raise awareness and how to parlay my students and her students' research into action so that it won't be easily ignored and it will be something that students first care about. So that's really what our effort was. If I'm going to present, I'm sorry I don't have visuals for y'all and a slide number right now. But is Jennifer here? I didn't notice that she's logged in.
She was, and then it looks like she cut out. So maybe if you go to the next slide, Eros, I think there's the what worked, what didn't work.
Thank you, Eros. And after this many years and days working with computers, oh man, I could probably do without seeing another screen for a long time. But my Zoom settings might not be ideal. If I was on campus, I think the settings are a little better. However, what worked was having students, for me, and also for AP Environmental Science, looking at how microplastics and leaching have a real impact on life near our campus. And that was eye-opening for myself. And I know that several students came and asked me about it. Oh, I see Jennifer Ostrowski said, Ostrowski? She's not muted. Okay, sorry. And Jennifer, please chime in. What worked for my students was the research part of making certain that they knew not just hearsay, but what stats and facts they could rely on. So it came down to what kind of sources are reliable, and then they made it their own by making several flyers, digital flyers to post on social media. And I think that's what worked well. And looking at what didn't work as well, there were more empty cans, and we did a plastic water bottle audit on campus. Mrs. Strowski was amazing at helping with that. So the numbers were surprising. And I thought that our students were certainly willing and like enthusiastic about finding out what is the real deal with kids on campus and do they care about recycling or not. And so we looked a few different places. Excuse me a second. And Jennifer, I hope if you're able to add to that, even in the chat, that'd be awesome.
Jennifer, can probably just call in by phone. I've done that before. You can have audio on your phone and then the image on your computer.
You hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
All right, so now I gotta mute that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to not have feedback.
Now you sound good.
Okay, maybe mute it here. No, I'm good. No, I can't.
You have to hang up one.
I appreciate both patience and iteration and innovation as we try and figure this out. I feel like one of the themes that I'm appreciating is the extent to which students are doing hands-on inquiry, where they really are making sense of data they collect and using that data to communicate.
Hello?
Ah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Okay, so thank you, Tom. You're awesome. Thank you for swooping in. Yeah, I don't know. I was muting on, muting off. But the things that I wanted to say is it was really fortuitous that I went right after Amanda, because some of the things I want to do for next year I got directly from the Ocean Plastic Pollution Summit, which were 100% making our own natural pigments. My idea is that after the AP Environmental Science exam, that I will have groups making their own pigments and enough to share, and then we'll do our paintings. We have a Bob Ross Day, national parks, and that we would do those from the various pigments that groups have made. Also, the paper that Amanda made, I saw this and I was like, oh yeah. So we made our ephemeral art, which was also tied in with all the feelings under the sun. Now, can you guys see me or no? I don't know. I'm on my phone. I wanted to show you things, but I think it's either audio or visual. Anyway, all the feelings under the sun has a creative reflection circle section. And so we kind of modified that and did the ephemeral art. But then we ended up with, all these flowers drying and kind of blowing in the wind. And I thought, well, okay, if we maybe collected them and then turned them into paper, and I'm thinking also add some like flower seeds into the paper. But anyway, I got all these wonderful ideas from Amanda, and I'm totally into this biofragmentation that you were just talking about. Let's see. I guess. Oh, I just wanted to say, I'm working with 9th graders this year, and it's so funny how, saying hormones or puberty, it makes them giggle. And I tried telling them, hey, I used to be a health teacher. And, ultimately I said, you guys maybe don't take it seriously now, but in the future, if you start having maybe issues trying to have children or something like that, maybe this will come back and you'll be reminded that about the hormones that you're exposed to, xenoestrogens and all of that kind of stuff. I really did want to show you guys some of the art that I have right here, but
we can do that. Here, we can stop sharing and then we'll just pin you in as the speaker.
Oh, okay. All right. So AP Environmental Science did this upcycling. So this is a water bottle that was turned into, and I broke it this morning, so I've taped it together, but into a bird feeder. Here we have a little piggy. Ooh, piggy water. It's a piggy bank. Here's another piggy bank. Ah, it's so cute. We've got this little bunny holder. Got some a flower. These are all flowers made out of water bottles. And actually there was another one that I left in the classroom. So I want to apologize. Yesterday was our last day of school and we had to clean up and pack up our classrooms. I think Tom and I were some of the last people on campus, and I'm just exhausted. My fingers hurt, my feet hurt, everything hurts. But oh, and back to something that Perry said about this new curriculum. Yeah, it's a little difficult. You know, we're talking about Serengeti and wildebeest at the beginning of the year, and then we went into talking about permafrost and zombie fires. The funny thing was we didn't get the materials for that unit. So I chose an easy exit, you know, like, oh, we don't have the materials. We're not going to move on with this. We're going to detour over here and look at plastics and plastics in the environment, microplastics, plastics in the ocean. We did albatross bolus dissection. We ended up with them making love letters to the sea. And there is a link on, I think, the first slide of that says ESTA, and there were a whole bunch of pictures of work that I included there. And that one big earth that is showing up, that must be some earlier. I added that picture, but it's much smaller, so it must be an earlier rendition. But whatever, school year's over. I'm tired, and that's that.
You were an amazing human, Jennifer. Thank you and Tom for sharing, especially at the end of a school year. We're gonna transition to Sarah going next, and I've got her slides, and then Devin, you were queued up next. So let me get Sarah's slides up, and we'll transition to her. If you've got questions for Jennifer or Tom, please put them in the chat.
Corin, would you, well, I was gonna offer to put them on myself.
Oh, if you would like to do that, we
There's
could
so
totally do that.
many.
Here, I will stop sharing
Might
and
be
you can
easier
share.
for me to just advance it.
Go for it. It's all you.
And I'm sorry, I just noticed my mute was off while I was telling my children to be quiet and stuff. So, yes. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So for BioBlitz, I had my high level Spanish students, which is the year one of high level. This is like a Spanish literature course. And they have part of the International Baccalaureate curriculum for Spanish is they have to produce texts. So what I had my students do was interview people in science, related careers of science, and they created National Geographic or Geografía Natural articles of those interviews. And we can see that one of my students chose to interview Professor Fernandez there. And each of them was able to learn, you know, according to their career interest, what was happening in their career and how they could expand or even specify their career options through interviewing these experts. And the artistic piece was the graphic design element that was brought on through doing the National Geographic magazine articles. And I put the slides into the file in the Google where everybody has their files. So if you wanted to click on this link and explore what all of the different National Geographic articles that my students produced are, you can go in and see that later. And that impacted or was used with 15 students. And will I do this again next year? Yes, absolutely. So the students really enjoyed it. They enjoyed collaborating to develop the interview questions. They also appreciated learning about other careers. They presented to each other, and it taught them to synthesize and create magazine articles and really put forth those conventions that are the textual conventions that are found in an article. It also taught them all about like how National Geographic does their graphic design in particular. And I guess the only thing that didn't work was that not all the work was submitted, and my students had a hard time finding, because the precursor was that they had to speak in Spanish only for the interviews, finding Spanish speaking immigrants from their particular career focuses. So I need to create some kind of like a spreadsheet for them to be able to access that for future situations. Maybe via Parent Square, getting more professionals from our entire district. Then we went in agriculture. We did agriculture and plastic pollution at the same time. I gave my students this prompt, which in English is, what difficulties and advantages come from urban and rural change, and what environmental and social issues cause difficulties for the world, and how can one overcome these difficulties? And I gave them a research paper where they had to find positive and negative impacts of humans on the environment. And then they, again, brainstormed about different topics that they were interested in and chose their topic from that list. So here we have one that a young man did, and he focused on soil health. And then I have water contamination, extinction of animals. This student particularly focused on pollinators, food contamination, and the different illnesses that people can get from cross-contamination from human to foods that are harvested, air contamination and what that means for us, overfishing and fisheries. And the students really enjoyed being able to choose their research projects, topics, and I found it very useful for them to have to kind of play the devil's advocate and find both positive and negative impacts, because they were able to make more informed decisions about whether that impact was positive or negative in their opinion, versus kind of going with what they've been told is positive or negative. Since I'm not a science course, we didn't really dive deeper into each of these topics. This was their final project. And then next year, there are plans for a vegetable garden going in. So I think that that's where we'll be able to do a little bit more application of learning. And then for plastics, I participated in ocean plastics pollution. This, for this, we had about 150 students participate in the project overall. And we started off in September doing a beach, lake, and school cleanup, which Heather school, Seaside High School, also participated in. Then this spring we read a plastics article in Spanish, which is linked here in the slides as well. And then we did a PSA where students created posters talking about solutions and ways of avoiding plastic contamination or contact with plastic. The students were really surprised as they were reading the article about how much plastic is in what they consume and the effects of it on their body. Some of the art activities that we did, of course, we did the posters, but we also did love letters to the ocean. And this is the data from our 2 cleanups. We did one at the school, which is on the, excuse me, on the right-hand side, and the one at the beach lake is on the left-hand side. So these are love letters to the ocean. And I really liked the idea of creating hanging artwork from a prior presentation earlier today. So I think that we're gonna create mobiles going forth of the animals in their like different types of animals, because I had a lot of students choosing jellyfish or dolphins or starfish or things like that. And I think it would be cool to create these mobiles that are hanging in the hallway that have the names in Spanish, Japanese, and French, so that the students can learn about the different names of the animals in the languages, but also they wrote, I provided them sentence frames to be able to write their love letter to the different animals, particularly for the Spanish 1 students, which is the one that looks like a ocean scene. And this is closer up of those. And then we have the posters that students created. This is recycle, reducing plastic. This is more reduction of plastic. These particular posters were done in what's known as the standard level Spanish course, which is a 2-year course. My colleague and I worked on the ocean plastics pollution project together. So she had her students doing posters as well. And just so you understand why there's so much words on our posters, the International Baccalaureate or the Diploma Track Program requirement for texts at this level is that they have, for the SL course, which is the standard level course, they have to have between 300 and 450 words. And then for my students, they have to have between 450 to 600 words. So that's the reason why we have such large amounts of text. And then my students presented at the Aquarium Ocean Plastics Pollution Summit. And I think that this part of the project had the most impact on students modifying their actions as far as plastic is concerned and how much plastic they're consuming, in particularly via plastic water bottle water. And that the article suggested just drinking water from the faucet, which had like the ick factor for them. But then I was like, well, why? Why does it have an ick factor if you are putting it through like a filtration system and things like that? So we talked a little bit about that and discussed that. In the future, I'd like to see us be able to take this even further, which I've done before in my previous teaching settings, and actually create a full-on campaign for a reduction of plastic reuse. But this is what we were able to accomplish.
You are amazing, Sarah. Thank you for the work that you did with students. I want to give folks a chance to ask Sarah questions while we queue up Devin. Sarah, do you mind sharing your screen just so we can see if folks who have questions?
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Sorry, it's a great example of to be able to see. Well, I feel like the one question I wanted to ask you was, did you feel like the love letters to the ocean, do you think that could be something that we could also do like in a response to the BioBlitz, like maybe love letters to our biodiversity or something like that? Do you think that would be feasible to do?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just it dawned on me. I wanted them to write something that was related to reflexive verbs around Valentine's Day, and the students were learning about animals at the same time, and so that's why I sort of combined the same. I wanted them to learn ocean animals because that was
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so smart. It's so clever. Oh, it's just such a great one. I can't wait to do it with my students. Thank you for that. All right, Devin, you are up next.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to start with the BioBlitz. What you see on here is actually information from the NOAA Ocean Guardian School project, the 6 R's that I did, but also a Monterey Bay Aquarium ocean pollution plastic work. So I kind of borrowed from many different programs. And so I'll start with the BioBlitz. It wasn't a true BioBlitz, sorry, but what we did was the students focused on the ideal ratio to enhance natural production of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and macroinvertebrates to create a nutrient-rich humus. And the reason for that is our NOAA Ocean Guardian project really focused on the 6 R's with rot composting as being the big project. We're in our 5th year of NOAA Ocean Guardians, so we were having them at times, the students were counting the number of beneficial macroinvertebrates that were in their compost bins. I don't have any data to show on that. I do apologize. But we did want to look at the macroinvertebrate diversity and humus to the diversity level found in soils near local creeks, and then also connecting to a watershed, the Walnut Creek watershed. And then without these healthy soils and natural processes may cause sediment to flow into waterways, creeks, rivers, and the ocean, thus negatively affecting aquatic wildlife, plants, ecosystems, and humans. And so what did the connections did these 200 plus students and the Environmentally Concerned Kids Club make to human health? Well, we totally recognize that we're part of the watershed. And as part of the watershed, we recognize that both the watershed impacts us, but we also impact the watershed. Thus, we impact downstream to our ocean. The pictures that are on the right here, I added them. I know they're not exactly to BioBlitz, but I added them because of the fact that with the NOAA Ocean Guardian 5th year, we were required to do a lot more external outreach. And so that's 2 of my students, the student in the middle and the student on the left. Those are 2 students that presented at the city council for our Walnut Creek City. And so they spoke about environmental awareness. Next slide. And then we also have this picture here of our president of the EC Club and then a student member. And this is the horticulture garden. If you can see way in the back, it is towering with weeds right now. So there's a lot of organisms in there and macroinvertebrates that we can easily find. Our garden has been neglected by the EC Club, but our horticulture group of campus students have been doing work. But we are going to, next 5 years, do a big focus on NOAA Ocean Guardian school garden habitat. And so I hope to bring more of that to climate action with Monterey, but also to human health with ESTA. And so you can see here that we are trying to make this garden area be much more vibrant. We want pollinators. I did right here what didn't work. Well, it wasn't a true BioBlitz, but we still got other aspects of it. And we're going to continue trying to improve our garden. Next slide. For the agriculture, This just goes a little bit more into like why we did our compost bins, what was the purpose of our compost bins. We have 7 compost bins right now, and so we're trying to determine the ideal ratio of plant material, detritus, soil, and water. And we would like to take that compost and put it into our garden. We also, from funds from 2022 and 2023, NOAA Ocean Guardian, we have a vermiculture worm bin. And so, you know, we're trying to make sure that the health of the watershed positively impacts human health, but also marine mammals. Because we also do work with the Marine Mammal Center up here in Sausalito for ocean ambassadors. And so that's why it's 200 plus students, because we do a lot. Next slide. This was just a little bit more about like how we focus on providing a 21st century STEAM education, ever-changing landscape, but also really connecting with educational partnerships among students, staff, parent guardians, and the community. I do want to also point out that the picture that was on the last slide was actually one of my 6th graders took a, I think it was an avocado pit, and he put it in the ground. No, I'm sorry. It was not avocado. It was an apple seed. He put it in the ground and he grew that tree from an apple seed. And he's like so proud because every day he'll come and go like, Mr. Jackson, look at my apple tree. And I'm like, that's awesome. So next slide. And then the ocean pollution plastic. Really, that is where our vegetables and you know fruits was this year, not meat and bones, but vegetables and fruits. Was the 6 R's, rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, rot, recycle, trying to remove kilograms of trash from the school campus and community, so doing trash walks, food waste diversion from the landfill. We're trying to continue with SB 1383 to keep organics out of the landfill. Kilograms of compost made from our school garden. And then also we have 7 hydro stations on campus that were donated both by our PFA, but also by our school district that bought them for us. And we've been tracking the number of single-use plastic bottles that were not used because of the hydro station that the students use. And the hydro station that happens to be in the B wing where my class is. The 900 plus middle schoolers at our school all say that the hydro station in the B wing is the most delicious water on campus. So last slide, please. And then you know, we're really trying to keep as much plastic away from our school. We're still having trouble with that. I mean, when I say fortunately everything worked well, it's basically the external outreach, the amount of presentations that students did. But we definitely need to do more work on our campus with wonderful bio blitzes. We've got to improve our garden, and we've got to continue to do zero waste. I don't know how much time I have, but I have one quick video. It's like 38 seconds in length. Can I show it, Corinne?
Go for it. That sounds awesome.
Awesome. Okay. So, and then I need to make sure. Well, I don't. Oh, there we go. Share sound. Okay. Okay. So, here we go.
Hi, we're the EC Club, and we have a new rewards program that will allow you to possibly get a $20 gift card. Students who help reduce waste on campus by recycling, composting, and properly sorting waste can earn raffle tickets, which could be turned into the office. At the end of the year, there will be a raffle drawing, and the winners will choose either a Mayo, Starbird, Teaspoon, Fortnite, or Amazon gift card. Ask an Epic Club member if you're interested, and good luck.
That's an awesome video. I love
Oh,
hearing voices. That's so
Oh,
cool.
thank you very much. So, I want to be transparent. We were not able to be successful with the raffle this year because we hit some red tape with our principal and other members. And sorry, I've got a 3-year-old that's coming to say hi to me. But next year, our plan is to definitely roll out this rewards program, not calling it a raffle, but a way to really encourage zero waste practices, a zero waste lunch, but also, think globally, but act locally. So that's what we tried this year, and all connecting to human health.
I love those connections. I really appreciate you sharing out. While I get Christina's slides queued up next, does anyone have questions for Devin? Thanks for the applause, Amir. I agree. I feel like it's a standing ovation. Ooh, Brenda, if you were talking, we cannot hear you, my friend.
Devin, you've done an amazing amount. I'm just curious. I know that you've done a piece of the BioBlitz. Were you actually thinking of maybe doing the more traditional parts where you identify insects and talk about heroes and villains and
Our fungi and fungals, yes. I would very much like to do a more traditional BioBlitz. It's for lack of better words, time management is a struggle for me, and so I tend to I tend to forget sometimes until the end. But when I wrote the NOAA Ocean Guardian grant application back 5 years ago, or actually it was 7 years ago, that was the intent, was to do a BioBlitz in our compost bins and find out, like I had this slide that pictured all these beautiful invertebrates, like millipedes and centipedes and other kinds of organisms, and then the students would count that and they would find out how healthy is it. We ended up just doing the bare minimum, which was getting compost. So eventually we'll go there. Yeah, thank you.
One step at a time.
You're
Yes.
always a work in progress. All right, with
Yes.
that, I'm going to turn it over to Christina. Thank you, Devin.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. First of all, I came in late. I had a commitment this morning, but what I've heard, you guys are amazing. It's such an inspiration. I love being a part of this group, and like it feels like, yeah, we really are making a difference. So anyway, good job, everybody. I teach at San Benito Middle School here in Salinas, and I work with 6th and 7th graders. I would call our BioBlitz kind of like a beta BioBlitz. And it was good. It was really good, but I definitely things I would do differently. So I just did a brief introduction to helpful and harmful insects. We talked about how impactful they are for our area, especially a lot of my students' families are involved in agriculture. And so I think there was a connection there for a lot of kids. And then we went around with these little nets that Corin got for us, and we collected bugs and we put them in the little plastic cups, kind of like what we did at that one training. that was kind of it. I had planned to do more, but we sort of ran out of time. It was hard to manage everyone. I took 5 classes in one day, and we did 5 different sections of campus to try to get an overarching look at our campus. I did not really make any connections to human health or do an art activity. Like I said, it was just kind of a, can we do this? What would this look like? Sort of activity for us. So you can skip to the next slide. I was surprised the kids really enjoyed it. And not just because they got to get outside and mess around, although there was some of that, but they were really engaged with the different insects that they got. And it worked really well for us to put them in the little cups, and then everyone could look at them and stuff. And so that was great. It was a challenge just with my classes, having everybody outside. They're so young, trying to keep them focused. And I had hoped we'd have time at the end to do some observational sketching. That was the plan. But we ran out of time, and I didn't want to keep the insects overnight in the little plastic cups. So we just released them back. And I had a little trouble with the app. My hope was to bring our iPads out so students could identify them through one of the apps, but our iPads were too old to get the updated app. So I took pictures on my phone in hopes of uploading stuff to iNaturalist, but I had some trouble with that. So I think if I could get an aide to come with my class or an extra helper, and then somehow figure out a way to have some more time for students to kind of like dig in a little more. We mostly did the collection and not as much like reflection or, observation, but I still think it was really fun. The kids, I think a lot of my students didn't expect to find anything, and were really surprised at how many different kind of insects were on campus. I put no, would I do this again? But I think I would say I would do it again, but differently. I wouldn't do it again the same way. But I think they're definitely, and hearing some of what you guys have said as well, other teachers who have tried it and have given me some good ideas, but just being able to manage, like 30, 11-year-olds outside with nets running around. I think I would need to think through that a little bit more, but I'm really glad I did it. I think, you kind of need that first run through to see how it's going to go. So that's what we did. And then for my agriculture side of things, I worked with my 6th grade classes, and we ended up focusing on water quality and how human activities affect water quality. We had an opportunity to do a field trip with Watershed Guardians in Palo Corona Park in Carmel Valley, and actually measure the water quality of the Carmel River. So you can see there on the slide the things that the students got to measure. So they got to learn how to use the tools and then go out and actually use them. And we coupled that with lessons in class about all sorts of human activities that affect the water in our area. We're only a couple miles from the Salinas River. And there's kind of like the little creek that goes by our school runs directly into the Salinas River. So we talked a lot about the Salinas Valley and what kinds of things affect water quality, focusing in on agriculture, eutrophication, things like that. We talked about, as you can see on the slide there, how water quality, there can be issues with food chain contamination, drinking water contamination, and diseases linked to chemicals that could get in the water. A lot of our students live in communities that are on wells also. So it was, I think, interesting for them to think about that as well. And then for our art project, I called it an illustrated map. I didn't really know what to call it, but it's like, you draw a map, but certain features are like larger or smaller and highlighted. And the students were supposed to just show human activities, both good and bad, and how they affected water quality in the Salinas River watershed. And so we did that. I did not include examples on the slides. I'm like a rule follower, and there were only 2 slides. And so I was like, I can only have 2 slides. So I will, but I can share my screen and show some examples of what the students created if you want.
Yes, please, go for it.
Okay, let's see.
And we'd love to have copies of all of this.
Oh yeah, sure. I am creating says something about screen recording. Oh, do I have to say it's okay to record my screen?
I think so. I think California law requires permission of recording. Sorry about that, folks.
Zoom may not be able to record the contents until it is quit. let's just see if we can make it work. But you guys can't see me, can you? Okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it.
It's okay. We can.
Wait.
Oh, there you are. You're
Got
good.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I'll start here. These are just the maps that we made. So they were supposed to somehow picture the Salinas River watershed. They didn't have to include the whole watershed. And then on it, they were required to put, you can see here's an example of someone, and they put like, you can see litter down at number 1 and how that could get into the Salinas River and flow all the way to the ocean. We talked about, they were supposed to show both good and harmful things that people were doing or could do that would help, as well as human health impacts and environmental impacts. I mean, I will send this all to y'all professors, but, and it was a really fun project. The kids really enjoyed the art piece of it. And I think it was more impactful because they had actually been to a river and measured the water quality and could sort of understand how that would all fit together. So I'm just kind of going through quickly, but, so anyway, it was pretty fun, and kids got really creative with it. We put these up for our school open house. Well, that one sideways, sorry. Anyway, so I thought it was I didn't intend to originally take it into water quality, but that just with the field trip, we were able to have an opportunity to see or go on. I felt like that was the best avenue, and I think it worked out. So anyway, okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I will send these to you all or put them in the folder. How about that?
Yeah, these are such incredible images. I cannot emphasize enough how in awe I am of the student art. Like, I love our student projects and I think they're amazing, but the art is just stunning. I really thank you for creating the opportunity. I've got a folder here. If you have student art, we would love to see more of it, because honestly, there's never enough of it and it always makes me smile. And I feel like it's one of the reasons why I have hope. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
While folks are asking Christina questions, Tatiana, are you willing to go next? I'll pull up your images, and then if you can share, that would be great. Any questions for Christina?
No, just a comment that I love the artwork and the integration of human health with the art directly. If you look,
I think that it's really easy for 11-year-olds to understand that if you throw trash on the ground, it could get into a river, but they don't really go beyond that. So I think that was an important thing for them to be thinking about.
Really great.
Okay, thank you so much, folks, for sharing. Tatiana, I have your images pulled up to share. Give me just a moment. Sorry, wrangling too many tabs. Yikes. Sometimes I wish I was an octopus. It would make it easier than being a human. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. Tatiana, I'll just pull up the images that you shared with me. If you're willing to talk me through, that would be great. Oh, yes, and videos are awesome to add to. Photos, videos, student art, student work, anything you are willing to share, we are grateful for. Okay. Thanks so much for your patience, folks. Okay, here we go. The first one I have for you is the plastics in the watershed. I'm just gonna hope my computer is able to pull this up. And so I'll just keep switching through images.
Can I talk?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, good afternoon. I would like to share my experiment project with students. Its name plastics in Salinas River watershed. It was related to agriculture exactly because Salinas River, it is an agricultural area for Salinas Valley, and our Soledad High School, it is part of that. And so here's samples of water from different water resources from Salinas River watershed, for example, Arroyo Seca, Salinas River in Soledad, for Natividad River, for Santa Rita Creek. And so together with students, we were able in the class absorb them, make tables. Twice we did observation number 1, observation number 2, and they compared their amount of silt, amount of amount of sand or clay. Here, another project also related to agriculture, where we compare the composition of plastic and nature-friendly materials within 6 months. And so we were able to see that plastic and plastic covers, they were not decomposed at all. And leaves, paper napkins, and paper plates were decomposed, and we draw with them later graph that that show exactly this process and demonstrate clearly that plastic is not nature-friendly material because it doesn't decompose for short time, and leaves and paper materials, they are nature-friendly, so we can use for compost, for in the garden, for example, and they don't destroy nature because they decompose fast. Here, our samples, what we didn't do exactly field trip, but I gave them picture when I made my own sample of the class. And so here you can see amount of garbage. It is a pile, we call this pile, more than 30, because we count on visible area. So it was proof of evidence. We did this observation in the class. When we have sample, and then after this observation of sample, we counted how many plastic items they see in this area. It is Natividad Slough. Then here it is Arroyo Seco, here bridge, and on the bridge I had opportunity to go there and make photo. It is here, was able to count 3/4 amount of plastic there. So it is evidence of our observations. We did observation in the class. And here the last, it was for everybody shock. It is in Salinas River, exactly in Soledad, here place where homeless people live. And so it is one of the cleanest areas here. And so a lot of plastic, more than 18, that part around. And here bridge, it is Salinas River. It is near the river because it can be wider. And then here river, here bridge. It is 5 minutes driving from the Soledad High School. And so because of these findings, we just were able to make a conclusion that compare all these samples, we were able to find that Salinas River near here, Soledad High School, it is the most polluted. And we call for action, safe ocean, no abused ocean, because all creeks go to Salinas River, and then it is watershed, and they go to Monterey Bay. We observed that. We even had brochures with them draw about Salinas watershed because it was not enough information on the internet. We made research, made the brochure, also had Google slides I sent to the students to be sure that they have awareness that we part of this problem. It depends of us. Will we find solution or no? Because we thought before, I also was not sure that, oh, it is so far, aquarium so far, Monterey Bay so far, what we can do in Soledad, but we actually can be active and have our active citizenship, residentship, and so it is what I work about. When we made this observation, I thought about this activity with Love to Ocean. So we did a first poster. It was related to this. They see here they had strong attitude. For example, stop ocean abuse. I didn't give them a recommendation. They just did themselves, students, because it is how they felt. They realized that problem is terrible, that we need to do some changes because we cannot just be passive in this way. So it encouraged students, was persuasive for everybody. And so it is part of action. It is at school building there, all students from the whole Soledad High School were able to observe. It was for a few months we demonstrated this exhibition. And there also, if you will see there further, we have evidence, our observations. We have observation, I created 3 tables and students together we discussed and put their numbers with this observation about disposal, here tables we see, and about here the composition of chemicals. And here it is result plastic in Salinas River watershed. We compare different, here even we took puddles or sloughs or dark irrigation trench, because when it is flat, water will go still to the creeks. Then from the creeks it will go to the Salinas River and then to ocean. because of wind also, everything related. Students before didn't realize about that. So here it is decomposition of plastic. Clearly we can see that forks and here plastic cover were not decomposed. It was one whole part, and here it was decomposition to 1/2 part, 1/4, 1/8, and so on. We see clear here graphs that napkins, paper napkins, then paper plates and leaves, they are nature friendly. I work with all students from biology and chemistry class, chemistry preparation, chemistry honor. This is our art activity. We call this leaf prints. We use water nature-friendly materials, and use leaves, nature-friendly materials, and use different painting and put their leaves and wait for a while. When then after a few days, take leaves take out, there's no leaves anymore. And we had this wonderful printing by nature-friendly materials, by leaves, and by here our garden, where we put another here experiment. We compare plastic and nature-friendly materials like straw, rocks, here straw around, peat moss, how it will influence. Can we substitute plastic by other materials that will still continue keep moisture there because they nature-friendly materials, but it will be natural, it will be friendly for environment. So it is our also long-term project. We can observe it during summer. Here I put some general information. Here observation, how we did. For example, Gonzalez, Natividad, here what we observe, creek, here color clear or greenish or dark. Here what ingredients are in the sample, silt, part of leaves, it depends if it is creek. How many plastic will absorb in visible area in their photos. And here type of plastic also. We did something similar because of your recommendation. I showed them slides about plastic in Monterey County, and we count what the amount, bottles, cups, or straps there. And we had our findings that because of kind of this plastic, that probable, during discussion they did, a probable source of this plastic pollution, 3 sources. Plastics from the agricultural field, occasionally, only few. Agriculture workers work very carefully, but somewhere wind, it go like away to the irrigation creeks, these places, trenches. Then we also made that it is near puddles, for example, in Soledad, because there was 18 and more drivers, passengers through this plastic. And another was that shocked us. It was that it is a human factor. When near Soledad, in the Salinas, exactly, river, it is just city for homeless, and because they don't have garbage cans, because they don't have place for disposal, they even don't have place where to sit down there, where to live. They don't have shelter, they don't have job. And so it was silent in my class. I was shocked also. I made these samples during my birthday, and I was so excited. Oh, I am a scientist, we will work together. But when I saw that, my boots were indoors, when I was there, I make private photos to be sure that I will not humiliate anybody. But however, I thought that we work here at a global problem, but they don't see that people struggle here. And it is not their fault that they are part of this problem. It is social and economic. It is also problems that we need to solve. And I had pain in my heart. For 2 months, I thought how to do that. We had activity with Laughter Ocean, but I thought how to do this to have real action, what we can do. And we think, oh, just, okay, receive grade A, we okay. But what about fish, about turtles? I try to focus with students on compassion, on human being factor. When we are citizens of the earth, or our whole planet. And so we are responsible for that. We need to have compassion. And so at last I found way how to do that. I make research about sources in Soledad around and apply to authorities, for example, to Soledad City Council. They provide a great job. They help even homeless. They can even provide some job, help them. And so I began to talk with students and encourage them to write call for action letter. We work a few days. It is still in progress. I will continue the last hour week. And they created something like these letters. They wrote by hand. Letter they sent to different sources, to Soledad Unified School District, to Soledad High School Administration, to Soledad City Council. And I even didn't give them this, but they wrote graph that prove here that Soledad is dirty. We need to say something. It is the fourth place champion in plastic pollution around this diagram that we made observation. And so it is proof evidence to students apply. This also they proved that showed again this graph they showed it is students' work. They showed it is part of letter that it is decomposition why it happened. Explain public people that decomposition happened for a long time. So it is why problem exists. They did also like this way. And when we have this kind of posters, this poster also they even put here, draw a letter first draft, then write by marker. Then here also, many of them, they like this idea, students gave this idea with poster. And if we have big this poster, we plan next week to roll it. It will be like ancient, middle age, send, make here ribbon, put in the paper boxes and send to whom? To administration of school, to Soledad High School board, to city, Soledad City consuls. Also, they did like traditional letters here. For example, like this way, something envelope. There actually paper here, jellyfish. That favorite put of turtles, but they write safe turtles because they instead of jellyfish, they swallow bags plastic and they die. Here also like this ocean, very simple, but they draw here bottle that we need to take away this trash from the ocean. Here also with pictures here and inside letter here about recycling that needs to do. I was impressed by my students. I'm so proud of them because I was able not only be together with student participant of this project and be not like a part of problems because we were embarrassed that Soledad is so dirty city, plastic polluted, but we are able to be part of solution and very active. And we have at our school also students who are homeless. It is private situation, but we know about that. And authorities, the people who are responsible, they help them. And so we provide specific help. For example, allow them to use cell phones. They not all that they have iPad, or provide them printing paper and this to be sure that they are able to complete their assignments. And so students need to know that life is not only artificial in the textbooks or just on the beautiful posters, that we have real life. And so I believe that my students will be able in real life when they will graduate from school or even now already, they will be active and be proactive and they will have compassion to their peers, to people around, to Soledad, and they wrote there in the letter that I'm very upset because our city is dirty, plastic polluted. I live here, my family live here. I want to be healthy, I want to live. And so they call for action. Please, for example, provide sufficient amount of garbage cans in the city and the school. Please provide help for people with low social economic status. Please encourage or control plastic pollution in Soledad. And so please keep Soledad City clean, America clean, and Earth clean. So I'm very excited. So for next year, I and my students together will have desire and enthusiasm work again. Now we have experience not only in scientific books, in our active citizenship and our residentship. Not everybody is citizen here. I think that it is great experience. And so thank you very much for opportunity to participate in this unique, outstanding project.
Oh, thank you for that brilliant project. I think it's so cool. I love that you collected data. Look at all the watersheds. I honestly feel like this is the really humbling part about this project is you realize there are so many different ways to reach and connect with students, but also to empower them to take action. I'm just in awe. I know that there are some folks who are teachers who worked with us who weren't able to share and present today. What I promised I would do is send out their slides that they had assembled. So one of the things I will do is assemble kind of a here is where you can find everything email so that you have access to the resources from the first year where we did microplastics and plastics and ocean pollution. And then the next year we worked on climate change. And then this year where we worked on agricultural practices. So you'll get a lovely email with all of the brilliant work from your colleagues and all of the incredible art from students. I'm so excited about being able to showcase this next year. We really want to celebrate the students and have an opportunity for them to share out their work. So we will be sending more information about that soon, but we also know it's the end of the year and you are either almost done with school or already done with school or trying to recover from the last chaotic, frenetic activity. And so we just wanted to make sure to say thank you and express our profound appreciation. So you'll be getting a small package in the mail with a thank you card and something for you as you celebrate your summer. And we'll be in touch by email with more information about the exhibition, which we hope your students can come to and share with their families all the work that they're doing. I just want to give a moment for the rest of the team to express appreciation, and then we'll send you on your way. Amir, go for it.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really inspired with these wonderful projects. I really appreciate how I mean, as a visual communicator, I appreciate how students and you sorry, how you teach your students how to communicate their findings, how to have a better impact on their community through conveying their findings and their experience in a better way or more effective way. I totally understand that some projects or some experiences wasn't very successful, and that happens in any design project, and I'm talking from experience. So but this is a point where you say, okay, this did work, this didn't work. Okay, see, so this is how am I gonna I'm gonna improve it. And in the design world or in our realm, it's called iterative process. So you do something, it doesn't work, and then okay, you just evaluate it and then say, how would I make it better or more effective? But once again, I'm really inspired with this wonderful work and the artwork and Tatiana, I saw these uh, beautiful photos that the students created using the this. I mean, I think they stamped using the plant leaves. So those were wonderful. And again, everyone, I mean, your students did a wonderful work because you did a very, very good job with them. So thank you very much. So.
As I wrote in
I want to thank. I just want to thank everyone too. It's been, I think it's been 10 years since I first learned about the SEPA program and started thinking about a grant. And then it was a few years before we worked on it. And it's so great to see this work as kind of building on all the work that Brendan and I have done over the last 25 years in the Salinas Valley and in California around environment and health. So this has really been just a wonderful experience. I also want to mention that we'll probably be sending out some other kinds of resources. I actually talked with someone about putting together well, maybe we'll send a video and a slide deck on things like food safety and occupational health. And maybe as time goes forward, we'll occasionally send resources to you that can help build on the work you've done. Once again, thank you everyone for your involvement and just the incredibly hard and beautiful work that's been done.
I just wanted also to just say I am so inspired by you all. But the one thing I want to say is I want to go back to school and be your student because I didn't have this experience growing up. And I know that you're reaching the hearts and the souls and the minds of so many kids. They in turn will reach the souls and minds of their students one day too. So, and whoever else they touch. So I can't tell you how inspired I am. And I love the fact how you've integrated the art and the science. It's something that it's near and dear to my soul. Um, I hope that you continue to tie it all in with human health. I think it's important for the kids to know that it's not just something out there, but something that affects them, their families, and their future children. So I just want to say thank you for these last 3 years. It's been great knowing you all.
Yep. We are super thankful for you. I will happily stay on if you've got other questions, and we'll be sending out resources. You don't have to look at them until after you come back from summer break. But we look forward to the exhibition next year, and we wish you a wonderful summer.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.